two.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our weekly media briefing and public health update with Montgomery County Executive Marc Elrich. I'm Lorna Virgili, Hispanic Public Information Officer, and joining us today is Dr. Keisha Davis, the county's health officer, Dr. Earl Stoddard, Assistant Chief Administrative Officer, and we have three guests today, Captain Jordan Sepinski. Did I pronounce that right? Okay, from Montgomery County Police Department, Kate Chance, who is the faith liaison for the Office of Community Partnerships, Christine Hong, Chief Services to End and Prevent Homelessness for the Department of Health and Human Services. And also joining us today is Susie St. Clair Smith, Executive Director of the Montgomery County Coalition for the Homeless. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Good morning, Mr. County Executive. Oh, Dr. James Bridgers just joined us, who is the Director of the Department of Health and Human Services. Mr. County Executive.
Yes, good morning. I have to get used to saying good morning, so most of the time it's good afternoon. I want to begin talking today about yesterday's leadership transition at the County Council. First, I want to congratulate our new County Council President, Kate Stewart, and Vice President Will Jawando. Since joining the Council in 2022, Kate's consistently demonstrated her commitment to fairness, honesty, and results. We've built a productive working relationship rooted in many shared goals. Her collaborative leadership style has been critical in addressing key issues such as improving public safety in downtown Silver Spring and the Melanie Diaz Fire Safety Act that strengthened tenant safety. I look forward to working with her in the year ahead as we navigate state budget concerns and the impacts of a new federal administration and Congress, but also along with the opportunities the county has to continue growing our economy and building more affordable housing. I also want to congratulate Councilmember Will Jawando on his election as Vice President. Will's steadfast commitment to progressive principles is evident in the work he's done, and I'm proud of the work we did together last year, particularly on passing the historic rent stabilization legislation, providing critical protections for renters in Montgomery County. I'm optimistic about what we can achieve together as we work to meet the challenges and the opportunities ahead and continue building a stronger and more equitable county. This morning, I attended the Capital Area Economic Forum in Vienna, Virginia. It's hosted by George Mason University. I've been going to these meetings for many years now, and they're very informative and led to a very interesting discussion. The forum brought together regional leaders to discuss the challenges and opportunities facing our region and how we can work collaboratively to address them. I think the overarching message is the region has the tools it needs to grow. It doesn't necessarily have all the policies and the level of coordination that we might find more optimal if we're going to meet the challenges and continue to try to grow the economy here, because there are definitely headwinds that the region has run into. One key takeaway was how interconnected our region is when it comes to transportation, housing, and economic development. And these issues don't stop at county lines or state lines, and collaboration is essential. There was a lot of discussion about issues facing the regional economy, no surprise. Some of the discussion focused on potential changes to the federal workforce and the potential implications for all of our local economies. The impact is hypothetical at this moment, but we are aware that if the actions match some of the rhetoric that's coming out of the president-elect, it would not have a very positive effect on local regional economies, regardless of what side of the river you're on. The health of the metro system and the necessity of ensuring that we keep it operating and meeting the needs of our region was also a topic of discussion. And that segues nicely into the meeting I attended on Monday of regional leaders who were tasked with solving the funding problem. I feel like we have a better idea of the magnitude of the problem. That doesn't make it any smaller, but not yet a solution that everyone can coalesce around. One thing that was briefly mentioned in that Monday report, and it didn't get mentioned today, and I'm a little surprised, is the scenario of what happens if Metro isn't funded and can't provide the transit that it's been providing even today. Regional forecasts show that future traffic is already scheduled to get 47% worse in this region. That is not good for anybody. And that was without some of the threats to the metro system actually having to reduce its services. So this is, either or both of these things, either more gridlock or extended rush hours, will contribute to further harming this region's competitiveness in terms of competing for new jobs. I think it's important for residents to understand this. The question is more than how Metro continues to operate. It's about decisions about how it operates, and those decisions will have consequences for all of us if it doesn't receive the funding that it needs to serve the region's residents. It is very important to the local economies, and we need the system to be functioning at the best level we can get it to. And that's, the goal of the work that is being done in the Monday meeting. There are two more meetings in the spring of this year coming up. It's helpful that we have the participation of many regional leaders who are committed to taking the long view of how Metro can serve us. And that's, the big takeaway out of that room, I felt, was that there are people who are committed to trying to get to a solution. There are a number of options out there, and it's a decision all of us are going to have to wrestle with. Last year, an anti-hate task force was created to prioritize policies to promote safety and combat hate crimes and incidents. This task force broke into cohorts that include members of the African American, Black, Latino, and Hispanic, as well as Asian American, Pacific Islander, LGBTQ+, Jewish and Muslim communities. Pretty much everybody's around the table. One suggestion that all the cohorts stated as a priority was in having an easier way to report hate and bias incidents. This week, we're launching a new website portal, and the form to report hate bias incidents is on that portal. The form is the same whether you are a victim, self-reporting, or you're a witness, and witnesses can report things they say. The drop-down menu at the top of the form page allows you to select dozens of languages, and a link to the form is currently on the homepage. You can also call 311 locally to report an incident by phone. To talk more about what happens after a hate bias incident is reported is Dr. Earl Stoddard and MCPD Captain Jordan Satinsky. And to talk about how we're educating and promoting this new web form, that will be addressed by Kate Chance, who's our county's interfaith liaison. So I'll turn it over to all of you.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. At the County Executive's direction over the last about 6 months or so, we've been meeting as a team to discuss this recommendation. Montgomery County has long been the most aggressive at identifying, reporting, and particularly up to the state, incidents of hate and bias. And this new portal and ability to call through 311 is a reflection of that commitment. The portal, as the county executive alluded to, is going to be available on our county website. You can currently find it on the main slider on the front of the website. It will be embedded throughout a number of sites where people might go, through the police department, through our Office of Community Partnerships, through our Office of Human Rights, and other places as well. So there's no wrong door. You can get in. We encourage people to file. You can file anonymously. You do not have to attach your name or any information that connects back to you to this report. But if you do, obviously this is, parts of this information will be protected from release, so you can feel like there's, no scrutiny that will be applied to you if you do choose to report. I'll let Captain Satinsky talk about the process that will follow once you do file a report. But at the end of the day, what we really want to say to people is, please report. We'll adjudicate whether it's a bias incident or a hate crime, depending on what the nature of the concern is. But you will be given, if you do provide an email address, you'll be given a tracking number. That way you can follow up. And our goal is, with all of these reports, to make sure that we're providing you feedback that we received your report and sort of if there are any actions associated with it. Furthermore, for things like graffiti, as an example, we've already partnered with our municipal partners as well as others like MCPS, where the graffiti might be found, to have a process whereby once you fill out this form and notify us, we're then notifying those partners for the cleanup activity immediately. So our goal was to have a back-end seamless process that allows us to expeditiously process and address the underlying issues that it creates here. So with that, I will pause and turn it over to Captain Satinsky.
Thank you, Dr. Stoddard, and thanks for having me today. This hate bias incident form is, like Dr. Stoddard said, a culmination of many different things that came out of the County Council's hate bias task force meeting, as well as discussions with the County Executive's Office and the Police Department. And the whole idea here is to give more access to our community members to get in touch with the Police Department or other services as fast as possible. So this form is for our public to report things that they may not want us to show up, that meaning the police department, for one reason or another. Once it comes in, it will be vetted by, we have a program specialist, myself and another, that will actually vet through it to see if it's a crime that needs to be handled by a patrol officer, because that could happen, and that will be shuttled off immediately to our emergency communications center. Something in progress, which we hope no one actually calls here for the in progress one. They should be calling 911. But if it's something like what Dr. Stoddard said, graffiti, and there's some sort of a hate crime aspect to it that comes into us, we would then make sure we have the right location, the right partners, and we have been working with our allied agencies and other entities in the county to make sure this information is immediately shuttled off to that group to handle it. Department of General Services, as well as our other municipalities, have been very receptive to this. They're all on board. We're really excited to have them. This information will be kept internally within the police department for tracking purposes and reported out to the state as required by the state law. And as Dr. Stoddard said, we have always taken in information when it comes to bias and hate incidents in Montgomery County. Not every agency or jurisdiction in Maryland has done that. They usually only take in information reference hate crimes if there's a criminal act aligned with it. We take that in so we can show what's happening here. So then we can take that information, give it to folks like Kate Chance, so she can move it forward to find the best way to get victim advocacy, assistance, and whatever else these folks need to make themselves feel whole again. So I hope that answers all your questions.
And Kate, if you want to talk about the work that we're going to do to educate our partners within both the the faith community, but are some of our other impacted protected classes.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Kate Chance. I'm the faith liaison. I'm in the Office of Community Partnerships, and we work to bridge the gap between different community groups and county government. And we know that all of our communities experience hate and bias, but we don't always see those experiences reflected in the data that we collect around hate bias in the county. For example, this year has been really challenging for our Jewish and Muslim communities in particular, and we're hearing constantly about the experiences of Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, but our data doesn't always show that. 9% of our population is Jewish, and a majority of the hate bias incidents that are experienced and recorded are targeting Jewish community members, with around 200 of the county's incidents in the past year being anti-Semitic. And I'm sure that even more go unreported. Meanwhile, 3% of our population is Muslim in the county, and we only had reported 12 incidents of hate bias towards the Muslim community in the past year. And I think there's a number of reasons that that's the case, and I'm hoping that this forum can help counteract that. Another trend that I wanted to point out is that 22% of the population is Latin American here in Montgomery County, yet only 18% of the reported incidents in the past year targeted the Latin American community. And given the fears that the Latin American community might experience with the incoming presidential administration, I think it's important to have another way to report this. And so I'm so glad that the work that the county and Dr. Earl Stoddard and Captain Satinsky have been putting in over a year ago is in place, and we're ready to use this system. So we've been thinking about creating the system so that our diverse communities can better report these incidents. And I'm hoping that our county can set an example of tracking and responding to these incidents. Like Captain Satinsky said, a lot of jurisdictions don't report hate bias incidents. And we know that hate crimes are incredibly hard to prove. So having the ability to track bias incidents also shows the level of fear and the concerns that our community groups are experiencing. And so it's so incredibly important to report these incidents. Our public information office is working really hard to put together a media campaign using flyers and different visuals to help get the word out about this new reporting method. And we're going to post these flyers throughout the county in different libraries and different public settings. We'll be working with our houses of worship and small businesses to help post these as well to help get the word out. Our Office of Community Partnerships has a number of other liaisons. I'm the faith liaison, but we have a Latin American liaison, LGBT, African American, Pan-African, Caribbean American, Asian American, Middle Eastern American liaison that all do similar work. And so we'll be working with all of these various communities to make sure that we're getting the word out and working with various partners. And we're also going to make sure that these flyers are translated into the top spoken languages throughout the county so that others feel comfortable, or are able to access the information as well. And that's it for me. I'll pass it back to Dr. Stoddard.
Thanks, Kate. And the last thing I wanted to say is, and this is really important people understand. Kate alluded to some people don't feel necessarily always compelled because they may believe an action is not going to be, this was a slur that was used against me. That's not a crime that was prosecuted. But a key thing that we've discussed with this work group is that the person who is using a slur against you may be involved in a more serious situation in another setting. And therefore, you reporting something that, you were willing in other times to ignore can help us identify people who may be doing more serious or taking more serious action against other community members. And so we really want to encourage people that if in doubt, please put a report in and we can adjudicate whether it meets the definition of a crime or harassment or anything like that. But we do ask that people report, even anonymously. You don't have to have your name associated with it, but your reporting will help protect not just yourself, but your community as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stoddard. Members of the media, we are going to open it up right now for questions for either Captain Saptinsky. I see Suzanne Polak has her hand up already. And for Kate Chance, questions right now will be regarding the new hate bias incident report form portal. Okay, Suzanne, Montgomery Community Media, go ahead. Good morning.
Thank you. Kate, you mentioned a couple of numbers, like how many incidents were reported. How many total incidents were there? Like out of the 200 anti-Semitic and the 12 Muslim?
Kate, you need to mute. You are unmuted, but we do not hear you.
Suzanne, I'll pull up the most recent report. Trying to look for Jordan, I don't know if you have it. We produce the police department every year produces a report on hate and bias incidents in Montgomery County. I want to say that the last report.
Sorry, we can just send that out. That's on the public website. I don't have it. I can't get to it for some reason right now. I just tried.
Yeah, I've seen that. I know where to go for that. So
okay, yeah,
I can get that. I just thought you might have more up-to-date numbers. And I was just going to one question: is it increasing the numbers or staying pretty much the same, or what's been going on with the incidents?
So we've had overall, at least from the police department angle, since October 7th, that incident, we did see a rise in anti-Muslim and anti-Jewish rhetoric that came into us in the form of bias and even some hate crimes, but it has kind of leveled off. We have not seen another increase since then. It's been kind of steady, if that makes sense.
We did see during the previous Trump administration from 2016 to 2020, we did see an increase during that period of time. And that's a combination of emboldening of certain behaviors, but also, I think, a hypervigilance amongst the communities that are affected in reporting. And so we do anticipate or would anticipate that could potentially happen again after the new administration. I think Kate was alluding to this in her comments that because of what we saw from 2016 to 2020, we would anticipate an increase occurring again after January 20th. And we're already starting to see some initial reports come in. And it's always a question of, they're anecdotal at this point. We are seeing initial reports coming in post-election of, behaviors like observing. We got a report of a Latino family where someone came up to them and said, "Are you here legally?" essentially, at a restaurant. And we would anticipate those kinds of things. They're not acceptable. They're abhorrent, frankly. And but we would expect an increase in those kinds of things.
Apologies. I have no idea what happened to my Zoom audio. It was very interesting. I also want to note that you'll see that MCPS, also those hate bias incidences show up in those forms as well. So you'll probably see an increase around the school season because of that, because we're tracking that information as well.
Thank you, Kate. Glad you could join us and we can hear you. Any more questions, members of the media, regarding the new hate bias incident report form portal? Gina Bixby, Local 360, good morning.
Good morning, Lorna. I don't know if this is a question for Captain Stachinsky or for Mr. Stoddard, so just whoever can answer it. I was looking at the form. I noticed that you do get a tracking code with your report. Will people who file reports be followed up with? Will that depend on the type of the report and what the department is able to find out? Could you kind of explain that a little more?
No, that's a great question, Ms. Bixby. So yes, we are going to follow up with every person that provides information and let them know what we found out as far as if it was a crime or not, if it was a bias incident, and if it was a bias incident, where we sent it, or even a crime, where we sent it to next, and who they should have outreach to.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That answers your question. Okay. Any more questions regarding this topic this morning? Members of the media? If you don't have any more questions, Kate Chance, if you need to depart, as well as Captain Septinsky, if you need to depart, please do so. If not, you can remain on this call. Mr. County Executive, all the topics.
All right, and thank you all for talking about this very sensitive issue, and I'm glad we're able to report the opening of the website. I want to stop. I would want to turn on to what we were talking about, and we've been talking about people who are facing housing security in general, and particularly in the winter months. We've been putting out extreme cold alerts. We're getting temperatures at night now that are sub 30. I think today it's supposed to drip down to somewhere around 23 or 24. So the cold weather is definitely back, and we're well below our average high temperatures. This week, we have been under an extreme cold alert warning. When weather gets this cold, we're most concerned about those staying outside without shelter. During an extreme cold alert, shelters remain open so individuals can get inside and out of the cold. And outreach workers urge those who have indoors access to please come into our shelters. It's really not safe for people to be staying out during these cold alerts. It's not really safe or good for you in any conditions, but particularly during these periods of extreme cold, it's extremely dangerous for people. And we really want to help people come inside. The homeless information line is 240-907-2688. That number is open at all hours and every day of the week. We want people to know and use this number. We'll put it in the chat for you to share. If you see someone you're concerned about, call the line. An outreach person will follow up, try to find the person, and urge them to go indoors. Just to kind of presage something I know concerns people, there are oftentimes people are reported as being outdoors. We will follow up. People don't always decide to go indoors, and the county does not have the legal authority to compel a person to go indoors. So sometimes if you report an incident and the person remains outside, it's probably not because the county didn't try to get them to come indoors, but because after efforts to come indoors, that person still decided to stay outside. It's dangerous, it's unhealthy, it has serious health consequences, but this is not a space the county is allowed to mandate a person into a shelter any more than they're allowed to mandate them into a jail. So it's a problem. Anything you can do if you encounter somebody like this, I'd start by saying, please speak kindly to them and please talk about, there are things in the county that you can do to help, and encourage people to take advantage of the things the county does to help. Any kind words can help get a person's attention and hopefully get them to accept the assistance that we're trying to provide them. Every January, we participate in a region-wide count of people experiencing homelessness. In 2024, we counted more than 1,100 people. It's an increase of 28% over 2023. If you go back to 2020, the homeless population is up 71% in Montgomery County. Family homelessness is 47% higher in 24 than it was in 23. Meanwhile, evictions have increased for the past 2 fiscal years, and there are more than 130 households on a waiting list for rental assistance. And the only reason that evictions aren't more pronounced than they are right now is the courts don't have adequate staffing to process all of the eviction papers that have been submitted. So what we're only seeing is a tip of the iceberg of the people who could be evicted if the courts had the capacity to handle all the eviction requests. This kind of focuses a little bit of our attention on the lack of affordable housing. Many of these people simply cannot continue to pay rising rents. As I think you know, rent properties built in the last 23 years have no rent controls on them, and properties built before that have 6% rent limits, but 6% rent limits are often higher than, they are definitely higher than inflation. They're almost twice inflation this year, and wages in the lower income sector rarely go up more than inflation. So this is just compounding a problem for already low income families in the community. The short-term housing and resolution program would provide up to 12 months of rental assistance and navigation services for families to get them into permanent housing immediately, rather than relying so heavily on motels for temporary housing. And this is both costly and disruptive to families trying to recover from their housing crisis, from the housing crisis. So we're going to be working to shift people out of the hotels into permanent housing, as well as housing first-time families or people who are coming back to the system in this program rather than in the hotels. We can basically house about twice as many people as we were housing under the hotel system. I've asked Christine Hong to join us today. She's the county's chief of services to end and prevent homelessness. And we also invited Susie Sinclair Smith, the CEO of Montgomery County Coalition for the Homeless, to join us. Christine and Susie, can you tell us more about, our plan with the coldest months that are still ahead of us, and maybe a little bit about what you're doing in general?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. County Executive. So during these 5 coldest months of the year, hypothermia season, is when it is clear that having shelter and housing are life-saving, which is why housing is such an important social determinant of health. And I'm so appreciative to our outreach partners and our emergency shelter providers, because they do life-saving work. Our outreach providers, of which we have 4, they canvass our streets, the entire county on a regular basis, proactively encouraging individuals who are staying outside to come into shelter, especially during these coldest months of the year. In addition to that, our emergency shelter providers for individuals expand their shelter to provide more than 200 additional beds during this season, so that we can expand to ensure everyone who needs shelter can come indoors. For families, we use motels for overflow sheltering. And as the county executive mentioned, our hope is to reopen the short-term housing and resolution program, the SHARP program, so that instead of relying so heavily on motels, that we can place families directly into housing. It is far less disruptive and traumatic to them, and it is more cost effective. So that's our goal there. And I wanted to welcome Susie Sinclair Smith also. She is one of our valued shelter partners. She's the CEO of the Montgomery County Coalition for the Homeless. And I'll pass it to her to talk a little bit more about hypothermia shelter in our county.
Sure. Thank you, Christine, and thank you, County Executive Elrich and Dr. Bridgers, for all your support. As we've discussed, as the weather gets colder, people who are living outside and for a range of reasons come to the emergency shelter, and we fill up quickly at this time of year. I'm the CEO of Montgomery County Coalition for the Homeless. We've been for over 30 years operating the primary men's emergency shelter in Montgomery County. We also have about 600 households in permanent supportive housing who've ended their homelessness. We have a supply of housing, about 120 units for those who are the most vulnerable. So we see the full spectrum. And I want to first applaud County Executive Elrich for the heart and wisdom that he has brought to this issue. And he has worked diligently to expand the capacity of the primary men's shelter from 60 to 200 beds. And we, as Christine said, expand beyond 200 to 216 beds. The purpose, and I think it's important for the public to know about this, we view the purpose of an emergency shelters to help meet the urgent needs of people who are experiencing homelessness, but then move them on quickly to rehousing or a home of their own. We do not believe in warehousing people. We believe in giving them the resources they need to end their experiences of homelessness. For the very first time, and I do want to applaud the county executive, Dr. Bridgers at HHS, and Christine, we have a very rich array of resources and supports for the men in our emergency shelter. And for the very first time, we're able to extend these supports to individuals who come to us during the overflow season. Before, we provided supports just for their immediate needs, showers, meals, laundry facilities, and a place to sleep. Now we're able to offer our full array of resources to them, which not only includes that, but also we have a benefits specialists that help people apply for benefits or renew benefits to help them afford housing. We also have housing locators who work with the men at our shelter to make sure they're eligible for housing assistance and to find housing and move them onto housing as quickly as possible. We also have on-site primary care services through the Kelly Collaborative, and also behavioral health services through Dr. Burrows. And so we really have a rich array of services. And to build on what Mark was talking about in terms of being kind and encouraging people to come in, we really view it to be critical as our role to operate a low barrier shelter. So we have a welcome opening door. We practice trauma-informed care. Our case managers are skilled in meeting people where they are. We keep people's information confidentially. So if people are afraid of coming into the shelter, maybe because of their residency status or other reasons, that is all kept confidentially. So we, like the county, really view our role at this time of the year to save people's lives, but also it's an opportunity to connect with people who are unstably housed and help move them onto housing. We're very excited, and I'm going to end with this. We've been trying to create all sorts of creative opportunities to move the men who do seek shelter with us into permanent housing as quickly as possible. As Mark mentioned, housing is incredibly expensive in the county. We used to be able to find room rentals for $500 to $600 for our men. Now it's up to $1,400 a month. So we've created an apartment matching program where and it's a new app where we look for men who are interested in having roommates, and which makes housing more affordable. And so if there are any landlords out there who do have rooms to rent, we work diligently to make sure that they're matched well and it's a good placement. So I just again want to thank the incredible leadership of the Montgomery County government in addressing this problem very seriously and also creating solutions to end homelessness.
Thank you all very much. Now, members of the media, we will open it up for questions regarding this topic, taking care of those experiences housing insecurity. Any questions, please raise your hands. Suzanne, your hand's still up. Do you have questions regarding this topic, or is that from?
Sorry, I just never took my hand down again.
No problem. Any questions?
Tom Sherwood here. Did I get in okay?
Yeah.
Oh.
Would you characterize, thanks for taking the question. Would you characterize who are the homeless in Montgomery County? Single men, families? What is the breakdown as you know it? Thank you.
So the county executive mentioned our annual point in time count, which was conducted this year, January 24th. It will be conducted in 2025 on January 29th. And in that count, it's a one-day count, so it gives us a snapshot of those who are experiencing homelessness. And this year we counted 1,144 individuals. That does also include family households. So we see both individuals and families. We also see a little more, a larger percentage of men, a little more than half. And we also see a large number of people of color. So homelessness is certainly an issue of racial equity because we see a significant disparity of Black and Brown individuals and families experiencing homelessness. So it is a very diverse population. However, it's also a vulnerable population. So many of those, especially amongst the individual adults, have a variety of disabilities, including behavioral health disabilities and chronic health conditions and physical health disabilities. So all of the supportive services provided by our many wonderful partners are absolutely essential in helping to prevent and end homelessness. But in addition to that, we know that so many of our county residents experience housing instability, which is why the affordable housing, the continual work to increase and preserve the amount of affordable housing is also so important.
Christine, if I may add, and hello, Tom, we do have a group of youth at the Men's Emergency Shelter, youth aged 18 to 24, who need special supports as they grow into adulthood. And we are also finding, just as adding more context, that our population at the shelter is aging and are becoming more frail. And I think all of us have parents and know that we wouldn't, or have, or do, that we would not want our parents to be in an emergency shelter at the time when they are frail. We do our best to connect them with the incredible resources in the county, but we have those are two populations that are very vulnerable to our shelter, and we do our best to meet their unique needs.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. That was Tom Sherwood with WAMU. Any more questions regarding caring for the people experiencing housing insecurity during the winter months? Any more questions? Well, thank you, Susie St. Clair Smith and Kate Chance for joining us this morning. Actually, it's already afternoon. Mr. County Executive, I want to remind you, it's almost 12:15, that you have a hard stop at 12:30. So let's get rolling with the rest of the topics.
Let's get through this. So next topic, and related to it in terms of when we talk about things that are the impacts or the results of poverty, we're going to talk a little bit about the efforts that are being made on our grant funding to community food assistance programs and an update on this program called MC Groceries. Our fellow residents who are without shelter or stable housing are at risk during these winter months, but we can't forget about those individuals and families who are food insecure as well. The 2024 Hunger Report released by the Capital Area Food Bank shows that 37% of households in the district and the Maryland and Virginia suburbs experienced food insecurity between May 23 and May 24. This is post-pandemic, a 5% jump over the previous year. The racial disparities on food insecurity are quite alarming. 53% of Black and Hispanic residents in the region are food insecure. It should not be surprising totally, since the average household income, is about half of the white and Asian household income for Black and Hispanic families. So they're working well below the median income. We're bringing in well below the median income, which is obviously going to affect the ability to pay rent and to get food. The racial disparities on food insecurity really are quite alarming. 53% of Black and Hispanic residents are food insecure. And 76% of those who are food insecure are employed. Notably, the largest increases in security are now among middle-income families earning between $100,000 and $150,000. I'll say, obviously this number is heavy in the lower income groups. I have always felt that a minimum wage ought to be enough to provide shelter and food for a person or for a family. And the fact that you've got so many working people who are going to work every day and still don't make enough money to buy food is a real problem. You cannot blame them for their problem if they're working every day. What you can blame is employers who refuse to pay wages that allow a person to support themselves and meet their needs. I've always been a supporter of minimum wages, and I continue to be frustrated by the general refusal of the economy to respond to these kind of crises. And on the one hand, write letters telling us we spend too much money on social programs, and yet their policies on wages are the causes of social programs. So if you don't like the programs, you can help eliminate those programs by paying people enough to pay rent and eat. 34% of county residents who are considered food insecure is a 7% increase from 23. This is one of the reasons that I created the Office of Food Resilience, and although it's a small office in terms of budget and staffing, they're making a difference throughout the county. Last week, our Food Systems Resilience announced it has awarded more than $3.5 million in grant money to food assistance providers. That money will support 48 groups, which collectively serve 165,000 people every month in Montgomery County. Montgomery County's community food assistance programs helps maintain a solid foundation of assistance for residents. More than 60 sites are currently tied to school-based food assistance programs, and this work closes service gaps and helps collect data on hunger issues in the county. Our innovation program, one innovation program, I should say, we launched this year was MC Groceries program with Instacart, which makes it easier for families to use online funds for groceries. Eligible households receive $100 per child, up to $400. The funds are replenished monthly. Close to 90% of those households participating self-identify as Black, Hispanic, Latino, Asian, Middle Eastern, and/or Indian American. Since this program launched in August, 498 households representing 984 children have activated the codes, with 94% participating, using benefits at least once during the first quarter. Thus far, over $336,000 has been spent, representing over 4,000 transactions. Fresh fruits and vegetables are the top two purchase categories, representing 23% of items purchased. The other top categories are snacks, baking and cooking, fruit juice, milk, poultry, cheese, condiments, and yogurt. Of the 553 MC Groceries program participants who completed the pre-survey, 93% reported experiencing financial challenges in the past 30 days that made them either usually or sometimes unable to afford food. More than half the participants reported being employed full-time. 80% are employed, and 98% are either employed, students, or looking for work. Often around the holiday, many people are inclined to donate their food and money and time to help those who are hungry. But as we can clearly see, this problem is occurring year-round. And you can see that from the amount of food that are different pantries around the county and other folks who are supporting our food feeding programs. They're all reporting that the levels have not gotten lower for the most part since COVID. As much as we think about these struggling folks during this time of year, I hope that people can make a New Year's resolution to assist however they can their neighbors who are probably in need every season of the year. So hopefully keep that in mind. Our residents play a big role in supporting many of these organizations, the nonprofits that do this work. There's more work to be done. The county government is playing in this space, and we hope we can continue to get increased support from folks in the community. Finally, I want to talk about the renaming of the executive office building after former county executive Mike Leggett. I am glad to have signed an executive order to officially rename the executive office building, which is where I'm sitting here in Rockville today, for former County Executive Leggett. This is a meaningful way to honor Ike's extraordinary journey and accomplishments. His path has not been an easy one, yet it did not let the obstacles stop him, and his successes have been quite remarkable. It's incredible to think that he didn't even put a photo of himself on his original campaign literature. And he did that because he wanted people to get to know him and his ideas without preconceived ideas of their own. He wanted people, frankly, to have the opportunity to hear what he had to say before they judged him based on the color of his skin. A Black public official back in his time, which is not that long ago, was an absolute rarity, pretty much non-existent. He was intent on working with people every step of the way, and his legacy is that of a leader who helped shape Montgomery County in profound ways. Ike has always been a champion for equity and inclusion and opportunity, and principles are core to who we consider ourselves today as a community. His unrelenting commitment to serve and his leadership during challenging times, and his dedication to lifting up every resident has left a legacy that will continue to inspire us. And this building will now stand as a tribute to Ike's remarkable service and the path he forged for future generations of leaders. We plan on hosting a renaming ceremony this February in conjunction with Black History Month, and this will surely be an event worthy of the life and legacy of Ike Leggett. Now turn it over to my HHS team for any updates they might have, and then we'll take your questions.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Just briefly, I have a couple slides to share. As I am bringing this up, we continue to be in a good place with COVID. COVID numbers are low. Flu also continues to be low, and our RSV, put this in presentation mode. RSV numbers have bumped up to the moderate range, mostly in our young kids, those under 10, which is not surprising, those who are most affected. I do want to remind folks about our seasonal vaccination clinics that we have. These are for folks who are uninsured and they are able to get the flu and COVID vaccines. We are doing these mostly in conjunction with our food hub, so folks who are there to receive food can also get the flu or COVID vaccine. We do have a few new nursing homes to report that have received 100% of their residents receiving the COVID-19 vaccine, as well as some new ones that have reached the 75% threshold. The new ones this week are highlighted in yellow. We are really encouraging folks in nursing homes. We know that those are the folks who are most vulnerable and most at risk of hospitalization and death from COVID-19, and so really trying to get those folks vaccinated. I do also want to highlight December 1st was World AIDS Day. Yesterday, HHS, in collaboration with Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, hosted the 4th annual AIDS breakfast, and want to remind folks that Montgomery County is a phase 1 ending HIV epidemic priority jurisdiction in collaboration with Prince George's County and Washington, D.C. We are now in a place where it is possible to end the HIV epidemic. And the way that we do that is that if people who have HIV know their status, the people who have HIV receive medical care and are virally suppressed, and that those who are at risk of HIV receive PrEP, which is a medication to help prevent contracting HIV. We really want to emphasize what we are seeing is the prayer breakfast yesterday really focused on Black women. They have not been getting the message around PrEP and around treatment, and we are really making sure that we extend that message to them. We also want to recognize there is a new dashboard to be able to follow HIV data in Montgomery County. The goal to end HIV, just back in 2017, we were seeing about 170 new cases of HIV in the county. Last year, we saw 99 new cases, and we are looking to get that number to under 20 new cases by 2030. And you can mark our progress using this dashboard, broken down by race, ethnicity, gender, looking at how quickly people are linked to care, and what stage of diagnosis they show up. So this is another great tool and resource to be able to monitor and track how we're doing in the county in preventing HIV. Great.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. The only comment that I have from HHS is I want to echo Mr. County Executive comments, the great work that our partners, Ms. Sinclair Smith and Ms. Hung continue to do tirelessly in the community for our services to end and prevent homelessness. So I wanted to say that and acknowledge them as well. So back to you, Lorna, and we can begin the Q&A if Dr. Stoddard doesn't have any additional comments.
No, okay. So members of the media, any questions for the county executive or county officials this afternoon? Any questions, please raise your hands. General topics at this time. No questions? Going once, twice? Well, I guess we're done for today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Mr. County Executive, we're getting you out of here right on time.
Okay, thank you all.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Hey, what's up?
So you're going into college?